Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Here we go.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Efrain Cornejo. As part of the Milwaukee Police Department's continuous commitment to be transparent with our community, we created community briefings to provide information to the public regarding officer-involved critical incidents. Community briefings are intended to provide relevant information which may include video footage, audio recordings, photographs, and other evidence. It is our priority to release this information and inform our community as soon as possible, unless releasing the information will compromise the integrity of the investigation. When watching this video, keep in mind that this may still be an ongoing investigation. For privacy purposes, we have concealed audio and images of community members captured in this video. The video you are about to see may contain officers using force, explicit language, and disturbing images. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Hello, I am Assistant Chief Paul Formolo of the Milwaukee Police Department. This community briefing will provide an overview of the officer-involved shooting incident which occurred on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 in the 2700 block of South 14th Street. On Monday, February 6, 2023 at approximately 11:31 p.m., Police Officer Peter Jerving and his partner responded to a report of a robbery in the 3600 block of West Good Hope Road. The officer's investigation revealed that a known actor, identified as Terrell Thompson, intentionally used physical force to obtain the victim's 2021 blue Nissan Versa and cell phone. At approximately 11:59 p.m., Police Officer Jerving conducted a radio broadcast to provide other officers in the area a description of the victim's vehicle and of Terrell Thompson.
4320, can I have an air for a strong arm robbery broadcast?
West, please stand by for broadcast. 4325.
All squads wanted for the strong arm robbery that occurred on today's date at approximately 11:28 p.m. at the location of it's the following actor. It's going to be Terrell I. Thompson. It's going to be a black male. Suspect intentionally without consent forcefully smacked the victim's keys and phone out of her hand and took her property. Suspect then fled in the victim's 2021 blue Nissan Versa with Illinois registration plate. Suspect was last seen wearing all black clothing and fled this victim's vehicle eastbound on West Good Hope Road. Any squads come in contact with Thompson, contact 4320, 4320 out.
Through their investigation, the officers received information that Terrell Thompson was possibly in the vicinity of the 2700 block of South 14th Street. On Tuesday, February 7, 2023, at approximately 1:14 a.m., Police Officer Jerving and his partner arrived in the 2700 block of South 14th Street to check for Terrell Thompson and the victim's blue Nissan Versa. Upon arrival, the officers located the victim's vehicle in a parking lot occupied by an adult female and adult male who matched the description of Terrell Thompson. As the officers approached the Nissan, both occupants exited the vehicle and walked towards an apartment building. Police Officer Jerving stated, "Terrell," several times and verbally commanded Terrell to show his hands and not to run.
Terrell. Terrell. Don't make us run.
4311.
Terrell.
11.
You are
You're
Terrell.
still in the Otter 23 district.
Don't run. Let me see your hands.
Upon reaching the corner of the apartment building, Thompson ran from the officers. Both officers immediately initiated a foot pursuit. During the pursuit, Thompson slipped and fell while running in the snow, which then allowed for Officer Jerving's partner to catch up.
4342. right, you back out there.
As Officer Jerving's partner attempted to gain physical control, Thompson produced a semi-automatic pistol and fired multiple times at Officer Jerving as he approached to assist with taking Thompson into custody. Officer Jerving immediately disengaged while his partner struggled for control of the pistol still in Thompson's possession. Officer Jerving then drew his pistol, alerted dispatch that shots were fired, and made his way back to his partner who was still struggling with Thompson. Upon getting to within close contact to Thompson, Officer Jerving and Thompson exchanged gunfire with each other.
Found on 14th Street. We're taking the custody. Oh, shit! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Get up!
431 shot response. What are we running? He's just responding now.
Officer Jerving sustained multiple gunshot wounds to his body and was transported by the Milwaukee Fire Department to a local hospital where he later died from his injuries. Terrell Thompson sustained multiple gunshot wounds to his body and was pronounced deceased at the scene after receiving medical attention from other responding Milwaukee police officers and the Milwaukee Fire Department. There were no other physical injuries reported by police officers or citizens as a result of the shots fired. As per Wisconsin state law, the Milwaukee Police Department requested the Milwaukee Area Investigative Team to conduct the investigation, which was led by the City of Brookfield Police Department with assistance from the Wisconsin Regional Crime Lab. During this incident, it was determined that no other officers, to include Officer Jerving's partner, fired their weapons. It should also be noted that both Officer Jerving's and Terrell Thompson's pistols were recovered at the scene. Additionally, there were no officers placed on administrative duty. However, this incident will still be referred to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office for review. To the Milwaukee County District.
All right. So, before we start getting into the video, as far as the fighting mindset, tactics, skills, and gear, who is this suspect? Who is this criminal? So, looking at an article from Fox 6 Milwaukee. The alleged killer was on probation. Go figure. That seems to be a recurring theme in this nation. You have criminals who are out on bond, out on probation, or on parole, and they're out there victimizing people, hurting people, or killing people. These criminals who, if they had been sentenced to the maximum amount of time that they could be sentenced, they would not be out there committing those crimes in those moments. Now, once they get out after that full sentence, yeah, are they probably going to commit another crime? Yeah, someone's going to get victimized at that point. But In this particular incident, had this little piece of shit been sentenced, he would not have stolen that car. He would not have shot this officer. Fox 6 News learned Thompson was in court on February 6th, the day before the shootout. He was in court the day before the shootout for a 2021 case and pled guilty to causing a hit and run. Court records indicate Judge Christopher D. ordered Thompson to serve 120 days in Milwaukee County Community Reintegration Center, formerly the House of Correction, but stayed that sentence in favor of 12 months of probation. It means Thompson only had to serve time if he violated the conditions of his probation. So he pled guilty the day before this shooting. He could have gotten 120 days in lockup, but the judge said, no, we'll excuse that and you'll just get 12 months of probation. This officer did not have to die. This person did not have to be victimized and have their car stolen from them. This dude should have been in fucking jail. The shootout that left both Jerving and Thompson dead happened more than 2 years after the 19-year-old blew a red light at Sherman and Bradley in Milwaukee and then ran away from the crash scene. A year and a half after he hit 2 more cars in one night and ran away. So he has a history of doing dumb shit. During his sentencing, Thompson apologized and called the hit and run crashes, plural, not singular, a life learning lesson. Yeah. Now, he got his life learning lesson that night. His lawyer acknowledged he was facing 120 days in jail, adding, thankfully, the state's not asking for it. The judge told Thompson, you got the benefit of a good bargain. He may have got a good bargain, but society there in Milwaukee did not get a good bargain. Because of this bullshit, they lost a good officer. A good person. A good member of the community. A contributing member of that community. Someone who is going to make that community better. This piece of shit little thug wasn't going to make that community any better. 19 years old and you're already fucking people up and doing stupid shit. And that's just what he's been caught for. Just what he's been caught for. No telling what else he's done and was not caught for. Or what else he has done, but the police just didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest. They knew he did it, but just didn't have enough evidence. At the sentencing hearing, Thompson's attorney said he had a supportive mother, he was pursuing his GED, had a job painting cars with his cousin, and even had a job interview scheduled for the day of the shootout. All of that played into the decision to release him on probation for a year. Yeah. Our criminal justice system is broken. Our police do a decent job of catching the criminals, but it's our courts and our corrections that drop the ball when they let these miscreants out. Keep them locked up. They are a problem. Officer Jerving was a lifelong Milwaukee resident and a decorated officer honored by the police department in fall of 2022 for saving someone's life in June. MPD said Jerving received the award for heroically providing life-saving care to a shooting victim during extremely dangerous conditions. Officer Jerving grabbed a fire extinguisher and helped save a man in a burning vehicle who had been shot. He had 4 years of service with the police department and worked at Police District 4. He was roughly halfway through his studies for a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice at Marian University when he was killed. One person who read what Jerving wrote for class called it a plan for his community from the grave. It sickens me whenever an officer dies in the line of duty. But this officer, from the sounds of it, was one of those officers who you want to be an officer. Like, there's cops out there who don't need to be cops. There's some lazy shit bags out there. It obviously ain't this guy. Like, this dude sounds like a cop's cop. And so when someone like that dies, it's even worse. Because it's an actual real good cop that has been lost. Society is diminished by his passing. All right, enough of the ranting. Let's get into more of the video here. So they make the approach. Dude starts walking away, being defiant, not cooperating. They obviously know who he is. This dude, he's a runner. Like, he's ran from everything, from those hit and runs, other crimes that he's probably committed. Police chased him. He's young, looks thin, probably runs really good. He's probably successfully ran from the police in the past. So he's a runner. Take off running, and he goes right. Jarvis goes right, and then this officer, the backup officer, goes left. So that's not an uncommon thing. Sometimes these dudes, when they run, they'll cut a corner really fast and zigzag through another way. That's something that they've kind of perfected over the years of running from the police, running from merchants, shop owners when they go shoplift and stuff. They perfected the art of running away from people. So this is a tactic that, when you're chasing someone, you can use, because a dude can just very suddenly zigzag, cut a corner really quick, and then go in through buildings. And it could also have something to do with his knowledge of the apartment complex here. He may know that over to the right, it's just a fenced area, a high fenced area that he's not going to go through, and he's inevitably going to have to go to the left. So could already be pre-thinking, hey, I need to go to the left, because he's going to have to end up going there anyway, because there's nowhere to the right to go. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it could be. Wintertime sucks for tasers because of the thick clothing that people wear. And I would guess that up north, where it's, around Milwaukee and all that, where it's cold a lot, they're probably at an even higher disadvantage with tasers because of thicker clothing. When a person has a thicker jacket on, or they got multiple layers on, you fire a taser, the probes will hit that, but the probes will not penetrate all the way through to hit the skin, or they may not be close enough to the skin for the air around it to be ionized and for the arc to jump through. The darts on these probes can only be so long. Even the green door cartridges, which are the XP cartridges, the extended penetration, even those have to be limited in how long they are, because if you make a dart too long, then it can puncture through the thoracic cavity and potentially hit organs inside the body, at which point you're not dealing with a less lethal weapon anymore. You're dealing with more of a lethal weapon, because if you fire a dart that's 3 inches long, 4 inches long, or something like that, and it goes in and pierces the pericardial sac of the heart, well, that person's going to have a bad day. Really, really bad day. So the darts can only be so long, just long enough to go into the skin, into the muscle area. So these jackets and everything, they're like armor, so to speak, against tasers. So normally, I won't say normally, but in some instances, when a person is running or they have fallen like this, it could be a great tactic to just deploy taser on them. But this officer, he's not going to have that option because this dude's wearing such thick clothing that taser is not going to be effective when he deploys it. When people are running, it's another, in my opinion, another accepted practice to pop them in the back with the taser as they're running. Some people seem to have a problem with this because the person is in such a fast motion that when they lock up, they're still in that fast forward motion and they hit the ground and start sliding across and get, something akin to road rash on their face from where their face just slides across the ground. I have no problem with that. I follow that under fuck around and find out. You want to run from the police? Fine. You're going to experience what it's like to be suddenly stopped by the taser. Shouldn't be running from the police. So obviously taser's not going to work like that, and in this instance where he's fallen down, deploying taser is not going to work. But I do think that OC pepper spray could have been an accepted option. But in order for that to happen, the officer would have had to have been very quick to make that decision because there's not a whole lot of time between when this dude falls and the officer goes hands-on with him.
As officer...
So it's really quick. Could he have made that thinking process and transitioned to his OC and just painted this dude's face? It's plausible, but there's not a whole lot of time there. This officer decided to go hands-on. He made that decision. He stuck with that decision. He didn't sit there and think and ponder what he needs to do. He made a choice and he acted immediately on that choice. So I can't fault him for that. Sometimes you see people, they don't make a decision. They're indecisive. And while they're sitting there pondering what to do, that gives the aggressor the opportunity to dictate what's going on. He chose to go hands-on. It's hard sometimes to talk about the hands-on stuff because I think that it requires a lot of good visualization, and I just don't have the time nor, I guess, the resources with bringing another person in to show, hands-on techniques and stuff like that. There are other channels that go into showing the visuals of hands-on techniques and stuff like that. So I would suggest you search those and look that up. But going hands-on with someone, if you've done this before, you've gone hands-on with people, you try to wrestle them into a pair of handcuffs, you already know what I'm going to be talking about. For people who have never had to wrestle a person into a pair of handcuffs, who did not want to go into a pair of handcuffs, you have no idea how tough it is to wrestle those people into a pair of handcuffs, or how tough it can be. Even when there's 2 or 3 people. Like some people are very wiry. They got pretty good strength. It's just the positioning for them is a little bit in their favor. Sometimes it can be a real hassle to get someone into a pair of cuffs, and we can't see clearly any techniques that this guy is using against the killer here, or the soon-to-be killer here. So I can't really comment on any of that. But one thing that I do think could have been acceptable would have been a bilateral carotid restraint, what some people will refer to as a chokehold. So I think that as this officer came in and went to go hands-on, I think that if he would have been able to initiate that kind of move on this guy would have been rendered incapacitated within 10 to 12 seconds. And in that time for him to become incapacitated, I don't think this dude would very likely have had the ability to get his gun out and start shooting. I think he would have been more focused on trying to get that officer's arm off his neck. Unfortunately, that type of move is not allowed in a lot of places. People seem to get all worried about a chokehold. These people are thinking with emotions. These are the same people who say stupid shit like, why couldn't you have just shot him in the leg? Why couldn't you have just shot him in the shoulder? These people have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And unfortunately, the little toddlers that they are when they throw their little fucking temper tantrums, some people cater to that. And you'll have some agencies who have banned those type of holds. And or there's some states that may, make it illegal altogether. For example, here in Kentucky, it would fall under, now, here recently, within the last couple of years, it would now fall under strangulation. The law came about for domestic violence type of incidents. That was how it came to be brought into existence, was for spouses who choke another spouse. But the language was just so vague that it applies to all instances of constricting around the neck, which is unfortunate because I really liked using a bilateral carotid restraint. I think that it is a very, very effective maneuver, and I've used it a lot in the past. If I can get a good hold on someone and render them incapacitated in 10 seconds, I'm all about that. To hell with fighting someone for 2, 3, 4 minutes, wrestling with them on the ground, on the concrete, on the asphalt. Screw that shit. Like, if I can choke their ass out in 10 seconds, I want that. I've used it many a times, and no one's ever died. But you take some of those very few instances where a hold was applied incorrectly and someone died, and the little toddlers throw tantrums and it ruins it for everyone. The officer could have also went ahead and gone into heavy techniques. And as soon as he came in, he could have also just punched this dude straight into the side of his jaw. That's an option, I think, especially now since this dude's running. But unfortunately, the way things are, the suspects get to dictate and lead these kind of incidents, because officers generally cannot exceed a level of force that the suspect is using. So the officers are having to wait for the suspect to elevate a use of force so that they can then increase their level of force. The police are always having to go into these situations with a constant of being dialed down, and they can only dial things up when the bad guys dial things up. It's never a good thing to be on the reaction side of things. generally action beats reaction, and that's where criminals have a huge advantage in these kind of encounters with the police. They get to make the first move in a lot of cases, and when they are going through this ordeal, they get to decide when they're going to increase that use of force. The officer has to stay at a lower level of use of force, trying to use the minimal amount of force necessary to get the person into custody, and can only start punching and kicking, when the other person starts doing those kind of things. I don't think that's very reasonable. I don't think that's very realistic in many scenarios. But unfortunately, you have people, like I said, these little toddlers throwing tantrums. They go to courts, and you have people who, in a courtroom, who've never been in fights before. How many judges do you know have been in fights and have had to wrestle people into cuffs? How many attorneys and prosecutors do you know who've had to do that? The jurors who sit on trials, how many of them have had to do that? You're taking a bunch of people who have no idea what any of this shit is like, and you're telling them to make a decision. It would be like for a medical malpractice case to have on a brain surgeon case, to have these people who know nothing about brain surgery, don't know shit about neuroscience, none of that, and then tell them that they're going to make a decision in this case. That is not a jury of your peers. That's not a fair kind of trial. And unfortunately, what trials end up being is just a kind of like a contest, like who can talk the best, who can present the better looking case here. It's like a beauty pageant in a way, like who's more convincing. It's a lot of times it's not even about the true science and the facts of things. It's just who was able to tell the story a whole lot better. So officers have been stuck with bullshit in a lot of cases, and this is a good example of that. I would actually have no problem whatsoever if this officer just came up and kicked this dude straight in the head. None. But you have people out there who have no experience in these matters who would throw a fit and say it's excessive force. Yeah. That's got to be probably one of the scariest sights ever. Boom, the person pulling the gun out. So this officer who is trying to go hands-on with this guy, he's not gotten a good hold on this dude. And as I said, if you've never tried to go hands-on with someone and just control them, you have no idea how difficult it is. And then throw in the fact that you're on the ground, you're on your side, you don't have a good footing. It could be slippery under where they're at. The officer could have got his footing and thought he was going to get a good point of leverage, and then boom, his feet slipped out from under him, and he can't get a good hold on this guy. He grabs a hold of the jacket, and the jacket's too thick, etc. It could just, a multitude of things can go into why this officer just doesn't have a good hold on this guy. This guy produces the gun, and he fires. It sounds like from the news release that his first firing did not hit this officer at all. He missed him completely. And you may be thinking, holy crap, they're so super close. How did he miss? That happens a lot. There are times where people are at this kind of distance and they shoot and they completely miss. Handguns suck. They're very short barrels, and you only get 2 points of contact. And then the terminal ballistics of them suck too. But just from being a very short barrel and only 1 point of contact, accuracy right then and there is already at a disadvantage. So it's not uncommon to see people miss at very close ranges like this.
Officer.
Now at this point, the officer who's hands-on with this guy, again, we cannot see their positioning very well. It could be that this officer, after the shots have fired, has gone and put his hands on this dude's arm, his gun hand, and is trying to pin his arm against the ground and keep him from lifting it up and firing more. And it could be that he felt that if he removed one hand from him and tried to go for his own gun, that the dude could have more easily turned the gun on that officer and shot him. It could be that that officer was unwilling to use deadly physical force in that incident and was still trying to, quote-unquote, de-escalate and try to disarm the guy. Because, you know, he didn't want to be the dude on the news shooting a person potentially in the back of the head. Because that would be what his firing position would have most likely been like. He's to this guy's kind of side and rear, and if this officer pulls his gun, he's going to have to fire into the suspect's back or fire into his head. And he may not have wanted to be the guy who shot a black guy in the back of the head and then have his face plastered all over the news, being called a racist, being dragged through court, etc. So that's a possibility too. It would have been nice if this officer who was hands-on could have drew his gun and popped that dude right then and there and end that scenario, stop that threat. But it didn't happen. And like I said, we can't see very well from the angles and everything what's going on. Obviously, you know, there's no statements being provided by that guy, so no idea, you know, why he didn't break leather and pop this dude.
Officer Jerving immediately that shot and time.
Taking the custody. Oh, shit! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Get up!
So it's hard to tell. Like I said,
shots fired! Shots fired!
He's still on top of him, and I think from his positioning, he is to his back and to his side, and you just cannot see things very well. It does look.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
If you watch right here, it almost does look like his right arm comes off.
Get up!
But it could also be the suspects too. It's just so hard to tell. The lighting is just not great. There's not enough light coming into the shutter to be able to see a whole lot in this camera.
Everyone shot response.
Get up!
Everyone shot.
Now, Officer Jarvis here has decided to take his gun and press it into the suspect and fire. I suspect that he has chosen to do it this way to minimize any chances of a round missing and hitting his partner. Because when we back it up, he can't fire from here. There's way too great a risk of him hitting his partner. He can't fire. Even though there's an active threat there holding a gun and has shot at him and could still shoot at him from this position, he cannot return fire. Too great a risk of hitting the good guy. So he comes up and puts the gun in his side and then fires to minimize the risk of hitting his partner. I think he should have refined that, and instead of pointing the gun into this dude's thoracic cavity, I think he should have just planted this gun right square in the side of this dude's fucking head and pressed trigger multiple times. That would have for sure stopped the threat instantaneously. Drill that fucking muzzle straight in that motherfucker's ear hole and fill it full of lead. He would not have had the ability to return fire and hit this officer. By firing into his thoracic cavity, you do not get immediate physical incapacitation with a pistol. You may get lucky and that one round go through and then hit that spine and then boom, they're not able to do anything. But you can't count on that. That's just a lucky hit. So when he fired in this dude's chest or his torso area, yeah, that round or rounds ended up being fatal for the bad guy, but it was not immediately physically incapacitating. If you're going to be this super close to someone, go for the brain. It is the fastest way to stop a deadly threat. It is the light switch for the body.
That response
Look where you're running, he just responded me now. Look where you're running, he just responded me now.
So the officer is not immediately physically incapacitated. He is still moving around. He appears to still be trying to assist with getting this guy into custody. But it also, in a way, almost seems like he could be losing consciousness, because it almost looked like he starts to lay on the other officer.
Look where you're running, he just responded me now.
So not 100% sure what's going on there.
Look where you're running, he just responded me now.
Usually, a lot of agencies would not have shown this much. Whenever an officer dies in the line of duty, a lot of agencies will choose not to show the body camera footage from that officer. They do this out of a sign of respect for the officer and their family, and of course their co-workers. And I don't necessarily think that it is an agency holding true to their commitment to being transparent, especially when agencies will show body cam footage of other people dying and showing them on the ground bleeding out, etc. If you're going to be transparent with that, you need to be transparent with other things. There are lessons to be learned from many of these incidents, and the learning cannot occur when things are shrouded in secrecy. This officer and other officers who've died in the line of duty, they have something to say even after death. They have a lesson to teach to those who become after them. The lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. It's not nice to watch. I hate watching videos like this because it is the best. Some of the best people in the world are dying. That's never good. That's like your white blood cells in your body dying. Like you don't need that. Too many of those die, you're going to die. It's not easy to watch. It's not pretty to watch. But it needs to be watched. You have to be able to learn from these things. Now, the suspect was pronounced dead at the scene. He was shot multiple times. Where exactly he was shot at, they did not specify. Where exactly the officer was shot at, they did not specify. But they said that he was transported to the hospital and he later died at the hospital. That could mean one of two things. It could mean that he was really dead at the scene, but they worked him, transported him, tried to get him back, but it just didn't work. And the person who does the pronouncing ended up pronouncing him at the hospital. Or it could be that he was alive at the scene, transported to the hospital, and then actually died at the hospital. Different states have, different rules, so to speak, or regulations or ways of pronouncing people deceased. Sometimes, when the coroner does it, that right then and there, when the coroner pronounces death is when the official death is listed. When in reality, the person could have died, probably an hour earlier or something like that, or 30 minutes earlier. So sometimes people do die at a scene, but they get transported to the hospital, and that's where the coroner ends up at to retrieve the body or to inspect the body, and then they pronounce them there. Sometimes paramedics can be allowed to pronounce a person, and sometimes that's done at the scene, or sometimes it ends up being done at a hospital. So sometimes it can be confusing to people when exactly a person died, because just of how the the administrative side of it works as far as who does the pronouncing and when they do it. So we don't know the injuries involved. The officer, he could have had injuries that even if there was the best trauma surgeon in the world right there to start working on him, he could have had the type of injuries that he still would have died no matter what. He could have had injuries that, had he had better pre-hospital treatment, he could have survived. I don't know. But what I will say is you have to carry medical gear on you. So let's say this guy had potentially survivable wounds, which I don't know. This is just pure hypothetical thinking, speculation. Let's say, for hypothetical purposes, this officer received what could have been survivable wounds, but neither him or the other officer had any medical equipment on them. Let's say this officer was shot in the femoral artery. If they didn't have a tourniquet among them, it could have taken 7 or 8 minutes for an ambulance to get there. You can bleed out in 90 seconds from a femoral hit. You'd be dead 4 times over by the time the ambulance gets there. Again, hypothetical. I have no idea if that's how that played out or not. But there are other cases where it has happened like that, or they've gotten some other type of wound that could have been treated there at the scene, but because no one had the tools, no one had the knowledge on how to do it, they ended up dying. If you're going to carry a gun for a living, you need to carry medical equipment for a living. If you carry a gun, that means you could be involved in a deadly force encounter. You recognize that. That's why you carry the fucking gun. To be able to protect yourself or others from deadly force encounters. You don't carry the gun because you like the weight of it. You don't carry the gun because you like the looks of it. Deadly force encounters can involve gunfights, and gunfights, bullets go both ways. It is a two-way range. You could be shot. Your partners could be shot. As an armed citizen, your family members could be shot. If you're going to carry a gun for a living, carry medical equipment as well. If you're going to have the tools to induce trauma, you need to have the tools to reduce trauma. When it comes to this type of trauma, we call these battlefield injuries. And with battlefield injuries, TCCC is the most effective way to address those type of injuries. TCCC is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. It is a style of medical care given to people with battlefield wounds. Battlefield wounds can include small arms fire, but also include things like artillery, mortar, hand grenades, whatever is in a war zone, right? Now here, domestically in the U.S., is domestic law enforcement and domestic security having to deal with freaking artillery and mortars and stuff like that? No, but there's still, some explosive threats out there, pipe bombs, improvised explosives, etc. But there's the majority of that's going to be small arms fire. So the data sets that drive, the tactics for TCCC include small arms, mortar fire, artillery, etc. Even when you take out artillery, mortars, IEDs, and you just leave just the small arms fire, the tactics in TCCC still apply. So in TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, you follow an acronym called MARCH, M-A-R-C-H, MARCH. And the first letter is massive hemorrhaging. That is the number one leading cause of death on the battlefield, or for battlefield type injuries. So at bare minimum, if you're going to carry one piece of medical equipment on you, I think it needs to be a tourniquet. Now, can a tourniquet fix everything? No, it's only for the extremities. It's not going to help a person who's been shot in the head. You can't put a tourniquet around someone's neck. That will kill them for sure. Someone shot in the chest, you can't put a tourniquet around the torso and stop the bleeding, right? But you can also carry gauze, compressed gauze that's impregnated with hemostatic agent. You can carry hemostatic agents, pressure bandages, and those will help stop the blood flow, or the blood loss, rather. And in the tourniquet sense, it will stop that flow to that site and keep the blood in the person. If you lose too much blood, and it doesn't take long, or too much blood at all to be lost before you die. Having the tools is one part of the equation. The knowledge is the other half of the equation. You have to have a good knowledge on how to use this stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of agencies will only provide CPR, AED, first aid training to their staff. I've been an instructor for American Heart Association and American Red Cross, and I can tell you that the CPR, AED, first aid training for those, at least for the first aid aspect of it, the first aid stuff is kind of crap in terms of dealing with traumatic injuries like this. The bread and butter for those courses is the CPR AED. That's where they shine at. The first aid blocks of instruction in those, it's just very basic watered down first aid stuff. Environmental emergencies, how to recognize, hypothermia, hyperthermia, how to, treat someone, if they're, having a heat stroke, pull them into the shade, cool them down, allergic reactions, scene safety as far as like, if there's a chemical spill, like indicators of that, like you see a bunch of people laying down and a barrel knocked over and some green liquid falling out of it. And when it gets to the trauma stuff, it could be something like how to put a person's arm in a cravat, how to wrap a bandage around someone's arm because they got a cut on it, how to apply direct pressure. It does not go into how to insert a nasopharyngeal airway. It does not go into how to apply a chest seal or where you can apply a chest seal on someone. Just because it says chest seal doesn't mean you can't put it on someone's back or abdomen area. Does not go into how to utilize tourniquets on people. And if it does talk about how to use tourniquets on people, it's most likely that there's not a training tourniquet within that training prop box for students to practice on. So when agencies only provide the CPR AED first aid block of instruction, they're really putting their staff at a disadvantage when it comes to the first aid stuff when there are traumatic injuries like this. To get people to the level where they need to be, they need to take a medical course that is geared towards giving care for these kind of scenarios. A TCCC type of course. Now there's some different variations of courses out there from different providers that go into the basics of TCCC. A lot of it comes from commercial schools. They can be more expensive than your American Red Cross class and certification. It's super easy for an agency to send a person to American Heart Association or American Red Cross and have them become an instructor, and then they can turn around and do classes at the station for staff, and the only thing they have to pay is the fee that gets submitted to that company for processing the certifications and stuff. As an instructor in-house, they don't have to pay an instructor fee, right? If they went to someone else who's an instructor, the instructor would charge them the fees for the certifications coming from that company, and on top of that, an instructor fee for doing the class for them. So it's very cheap for agencies to send someone to become an instructor in this, and they do it all in-house. And it's easy for them to do that. There's not really a company out there that I know of that does a TCCC instructor certification kind of thing like you would find with American Red Cross or American Heart Association. So it can be harder for agencies to afford to send officers to a school where it's like maybe $300 a student or something like that. For agencies that are cash strapped and they can't send people off for training, they can't bring an instructor in to do training, your local fire department, your ambulance provider, your air ambulance provider, they do training continuously. They could be a good resource to connect with and get some decent training on how to apply tourniquets and chest seals, etc. If there's anyone on the agency who was in the military, who was a medic, combat lifesaver trained, they would be a good source of information on putting on a perhaps an unofficial class on, hey, this is how you use the tourniquets, guys, and get people to put tourniquets on each other. Take an expired thing of chest seals and rip those things open, and how to apply those, etc. I will say that a good medical class will have you go through an actual medical kit. A good medical class will have you rip open a package of chest seals and apply those. A good medical class will show you how to insert a nasopharyngeal airway. A good medical class will have you take tourniquets and put them on each other. Mind you, they need to be dedicated for training purposes only. You cannot take a real live tourniquet, use it in the training environment, and then go put it into use in real world. If you take a real live tourniquet and put it in the training environment and use it in the training environment, it needs to stay in the training environment. They make training tourniquets in the color blue so that it's easily identifiable. But just know that if you take a live tourniquet and you use it for training, you cannot ever use it again for live purposes. But a good class, like I said, will have you put tourniquets on people. A good class will have you open up a pressure bandage package and apply the pressure bandage. If it's nothing but PowerPoint, it's not a good class. You can still get some good academic knowledge from it, but as far as getting your hands on stuff, it's not good. You need to get hands on. You need to be ripping these packages open, knowing like what it looks like and how to apply it, etc. Suspect's gun, killer's gun rather. So this is a ghost gun. You can tell that this is a ghost gun based off the frame right here. That company that produces these guns, this is like their bread and butter design right here. That's what they are. You can also kind of see a little bit of the, I guess the logo down here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's at the base of the frame here. It doesn't have any Glock symbols on it. It looks like a Glock, but it's not a Glock. So what is a ghost gun? To understand what a ghost gun is, you have to first understand what a firearm is. This black piece right here is the frame of the pistol. This tan brown colored piece up here is called the slide. The slide is not considered a firearm. You could go to a gun shop, even as a felon, and buy this brown piece up here all day long. You don't have to do a background check on it because it's not considered a firearm by the ATF. The ATF considers this piece, this black piece, to be the firearm. So if you went and tried to buy just this piece alone, you would have to fill out paperwork because this is what's considered a firearm. These ghost gun companies, they sell this piece down here, but it doesn't have any internal pieces to it. It doesn't have the trigger in it. It doesn't have the slide stop in it. It doesn't have the takedown lever here. It doesn't have the pins in it. And the pins are right there, there, and there. And the pins are not only are the pins not in it, but those places right there where the pins would go, there are no holes right there. It's completely filled with plastic. And because of that, because it has no internals in it, and because these holes do not exist in it, it is considered an 80% lower. It's 80% ready to be turned into a gun. So it's not legally considered a firearm at that point, and anybody can buy those. Even a felon can buy it because it's just considered a piece of plastic. Now, when these companies sell these things, you get with it the drill bits for the correct size to make the holes, and you get a jig that you place this whole frame into. It holds it in there, and that jig has these guide holes so that you know exactly, precisely where to drill into this thing at. You drill your holes, and then you take your trigger assembly, put it together, drop in the slide stop lever and the takedown lever here, and put your pins in. Put in your magazine release, the spring back here. Put all that in. Boom, you got a working gun. Actually, technically, as soon as you drill that last hole, boom, that is now legally considered a firearm. Drop in all your pieces, attach that top piece to it, the slide, and you've got a working gun. So there's a lot of hate on ghost guns. When videos originate out of California, they are very quick to say, this was a ghost gun, this was a ghost gun. They didn't obviously mention it in this video. It's me mentioning it. But the problem that people have with ghost guns is, one, it's unregistered. And then secondly, anyone can buy the kit. Well, at least anybody could. Biden has recently, within the last several months, encouraged the ATF to make some changes within regulations. And I believe now that if you buy the full kit, like a kit that comes with the 80% lower and the slide and all that, you have to do paperwork on it. But if you buy just the top slide, obviously you don't have to do any paperwork on it. If you buy just the lower, but it does not come with a jig or drill bits or internals, you don't have to do paperwork on it. But if you buy a kit that comes with the jig, the bits, and the internals, then I think you have to do paperwork on it as a gun. Don't hold me to that. I don't know for sure because I don't get into ghost guns. I think it's kind of a goofy hobby, in my opinion. Like playing Legos with guns. Like I'm not fucking playing Legos with my guns. Like I'm going to buy it from a reputable source, a reputable manufacturer, and have it ready to go out the box. But some people, they like this hobby of, putting their guns together. You get AR-15s like this. You can get AR-15 parts kits and put your whole rifle together. Again, I don't think that playing Legos with fighting guns is a viable option. And that's all I'm concerned about is fighting guns. I don't have any toy guns. I have fighting guns. People think because I'm a gun guy, I've got like a huge collection of guns. I really don't. I only got a few guns, and they're all fighting guns. They have a purpose. They are for fighting purposes only. I may go do some shooting competitions with them and stuff, but I don't have like a range gun. It's just a gun that I go to the range with, or I don't have a competition gun. That's all it's used for. All my guns are fighting guns. So that's my take on it, on why I don't like the ghost gun stuff. But other people, they do have a range gun. That's all they use at that range is that one gun, but they carry something else, or it's a competition gun, whatever. But the registration part of it, the anti-gun crowd does not like the fact that there's no registration with it, and that has no bearing on whether or not it's going to stop a crime. Even for the criminals who steal a gun from someone else, and it has a serial number on it, it's not going to prevent them from committing any crimes. A lot of times, criminals will file off serial numbers. So the anti-gun crowd, what they are really saying when they have a problem with these things not having serial numbers on them is they're wanting a national gun registry. They want to know who has what gun and how many guns they got. That to me is a problem. That something like that should never exist. History has shown that when people have when governments have a list of who has guns, and when it's time to come confiscate all those guns, well, bad shit starts to happen to those people once all the guns are confiscated. And it's funny too to me because the left, like when Trump was in office, and now even when Trump is now a candidate for the next election, the left is just so adamant that Trump's a racist. He's going to do this, that. So worried, so concerned that he will turn out to be the next angry German guy to put people in camps. They talk like that, but yet turn around and say, we need to ban guns. We need to have gun registries. And that is so incredibly stupid. Because what if Trump did live up to their fears and try to put people on trains and send them to camps? If there was a national gun registry, he would know who to target to take guns away from. The people could be very easily disarmed before the Gestapo went in to round them up and put them on trains. So the anti-gun crowd, their arguments with this kind of stuff is it's very asinine to me. They should be the ones, if they have such a fear that someone like Trump is going to do stuff like that, they should be the number one people advocating for gun rights. They should be the ones advocating no national registry. We don't need some fascist knowing who has guns and how many guns they got. That's going to make it too easy for them. But yet they're not like that. They're very they're a mix of interesting and peculiar and awkward and just dumb kind of people. It's hard to figure them out and understand them. But the serial number has no effect on crimes. The only way a serial number helps in any kind of crime is having the police identify whether or not the gun was reported stolen. If they can run the serial number in NCIC and be like, oh, this gun was reported stolen, in 2020, March. Then the person that was in possession of it, they could charge them for receiving stolen firearm or whatever charge a state has for that kind of thing. That's it. That's all it helps to do. The anti-gun crowd saying that anyone can go out and buy these things and turn them, into working guns. Right now they shouldn't have, any gripes about that because Biden has changed things. But still, even before then, I don't think still that it was that much of a problem. It's not like this thing is literally like Legos. You just stack things together and it starts working. You have to have the equipment. You got to have a drill to make the holes in there. You got to have some knowledge on how to put the springs and stuff together and insert these things. Some criminals are not smart enough to do that. They're really not. Some of them have difficulty chewing bubblegum and walking at the same time. Now, there are some who are smart enough to be able to do it. They're a little bit more mechanically inclined to be able to do things like this. They're still going to get guns either way. These ghost guns are... I wish there was some good hard numbers to be able to throw out there, but when you... And it may vary from geographical area to geographical area, but by and large, the guns criminals are using, they're not 100% ghost guns. It's not like all these convicted felons are like, haha, here's my loophole, I'm going to get me a ghost gun. They don't always do that. They go bust the window of a car and rummage through the car, find a gun by happenstance because the person left it in the center console that doesn't lock. And those are the kind of guns that make it to the streets. If there is a ghost gun that makes it out to the streets, there's a good chance that a lot of them are stolen from lawful people who made the things and kept them in the car because it is to them a car gun. Something they don't want to keep their nice HK in the car. They'd rather keep the ghost gun in the car because it's a more of a junkier. I won't say junky, but it's a lesser quality thing. They don't care if it, starts to get rust or anything like that on it. A lot of the guns used by convicted felons and thugs they're stolen guns. They're stolen out of cars or stolen from homes. And another way that a lot of these thugs get guns is they have some family members and friends who are not convicted felons, and they give them the money to go out to a gun store and buy them that way. The extended magazine here, that's something else the anti-gun crowd cries about, extended mags. I see no problem in extended mags whatsoever. Extendos are a popular thing with the thug crowd. They'll put these things in there. This thing right here that's attached to the gun, that's going to be a laser. That's another thing that's very popular with the thug crowd. They call them beams, and a lot of their choices in guns is driven by their idols, the people they look up to, their rap stars. And when they watch a rap video or see images of a rapper or whatever, they're usually holding something that looks like this. If all the rap stars tomorrow started using revolvers in their videos and taking pictures with revolvers, you would see all across the country all these little wannabe thugs using revolvers. They'd start stealing and looking for revolvers instead of guns like this. And the laser thing is something that it's an aesthetic fad kind of thing. The laser on the pistol is a crappy attachment in my opinion. If you're going to have an attachment on the pistol, it needs to be a weapon mounted light. A laser, the only thing a laser is going to do is tell you that you've got your gun pointed at something. You're not able to tell what that something is, or even if you can tell it's a person, you're not going to be able to tell if that person is a threat or not, because it just is not beaming enough light out of that laser to spill out and show everything else going on. It's a very precise beam of light. A weapon-mounted light, you can positively identify if that person has a gun or not. Another thing with lasers, especially during the day, end up doing fishing with the laser dot. Pull the gun out and you'll try to see where the dot's at and zero it in on the person. Kind of like how when you come to a computer or a laptop and you don't know where the mouse cursor is, and so you move the mouse around or you move your finger around on the mouse pad to see where the cursor is on the screen to pick it up. People do the same thing when it comes to lasers during the day, and even in lower light conditions. It's easier, faster acquisition during low light, but during daytime, it obviously a little bit longer. And another thing is these stupid thugs, they don't understand the concept of windage and elevation. These lasers on here, they have to be zeroed in. So once you attach this thing to the gun, you have to go to the range, turn the laser on, point at the target, pull the trigger, and see where that round hits. Adjust the windage and elevation of the laser, fire another round, adjust if you need to, fire another round, and when you start putting rounds in the bullseye, your laser is zeroed. A lot of them, they don't understand that. They'll just put the damn laser on there, and this damn thing could be way off. Like, the laser could be pointing at the bullseye, and when they pull the trigger, the fucking bullet lands a foot to the right or to the left. Like, they don't understand that. Which I guess is, in a way, a bit of an advantage when they're going up against the good guys, because they'll be shooting at good guys, but because their shit's not zeroed in, they're not aiming effectively and they're missing them. It sucks for everyone else around because stray rounds are coming towards them. The officer's gun. So we got a SIG here with a TLR1. And every time I see TLR1, I think of TRL, the MTV show Total Request Live with Carson Daly. But this weapon-mounted light, you can see that this protrudes outwards some. So when this officer had come up and rammed this gun into this guy's side and pressed rounds into him, this weapon-mounted light, I think, was instrumental in allowing this gun to fire. If he did not have this weapon-mounted light on the gun and he went to press this gun into this guy, there's a possibility that as he pressed into it, the fabric of the jacket and the clothing and his skin could have, as he pressed in, caused this top slide to push backwards and then cause the gun to go out of battery. And when your handgun goes out of battery, just by pushing the slide back just a little bit, you pull the trigger, it will not go boom because it's out of battery. So this is why I like weapon-mounted lights for pistols to protrude past the muzzle for those type of close encounter contacts with people where you have to fire from close retention, fire from bad breath distance. It allows you to improve or increase the odds that your slide is going to stay in battery. Streamlight does make a smaller footprint of a weapon-mounted light that's more in line with the muzzle in the front of the gun. I get that they do that for people so it's more comfortable to carry for, inside the waistband, stuff like that. I don't think that's a good design. I don't think that's a good thing because when you do have to do a close contact shot, that just increases the odds that when you press this gun into someone, the slide is going to be pushed back. Yes, it is bulkier when you have a weapon-mounted light, when it protrudes out like this, but I think it is best overall for a fighting gun to have the weapon-mounted light that protrudes past the muzzle itself. So this officer's gun who died, one thing that I've thought about before whenever things like this happen, what happens to their equipment? What's going to happen to this gun? Is it going to be thrown back in rotation and someone's going to end up with a dead cop's gun? Is the agency going to be thinking about that? Like, oh, we don't want to give someone this dead officer's gun. That could be bad luck. Because superstition, does play a role with a lot of people. So, do some places say, oh, we don't want to do that. We're just going to purge this from our system. We'll sell it back to the distributor or the dealer we bought it from, or we'll throw it up on auction or whatever. Do they get rid of it, or do some places throw it back in rotation and a new officer gets it and they have no idea the history behind it? Little things like that, like those random odd things, are sometimes things that I think about. I don't know why. I guess it's just the way my weird brain is. Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.